Thank you for joining us in the Mass Life Sciences Center info session slides recording. I would like for everyone to know that before they get ready to do their application, they should go to the website to www.masslifesciences.com and look at all the documents we have there for your reference, beginning with the solicitation, which explains all of the requirements and eligibility for the program. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Mass Life Sciences Center, we've been around for a while and we are part of the state investment in the life sciences. And our major objectives are to promote economic development, to support the Commonwealth's world-class academic medical centers, research institutions, universities, and industry participants, promote a highly skilled and educated workforce, create an industry-friendly environment, strengthen and protect Massachusetts' global leadership position in life sciences, and of course, ultimately support the development of treatments, therapies, and cures. The monies that we've used over our history, $1 billion investment over 10 years, are divided into 3 pools. There's a $250 million pool which is dedicated to tax incentives. There is a $500 million pool that's dedicated to from our capital fund, which provides nonprofits with funding for projects, infrastructure projects. And we have $250 million in the investment fund, which is subject each year to appropriation from the legislature. And from this fund and this pool of funds comes our Accelerator program, as well as other programs for industry. But why you're here today is to hear about the Accelerator Loan Program. So let's dive into the details of the program. As you may or may not know, it is a 5-year loan, and in the fiscal 16 round, there is availability of up to $750,000 as a loan amount. The loan does carry a 10% interest rate, which is compounded annually, and it is generally unsecured, though it is subordinated. We have a warrant coverage expectation of 4%, and the 5-year loan enables you to use the money for operating capital. The one exception is that we do require you to pay back the loan early if you have had a financing event of $5 million or more within a 12-month period. At the high end, there's also a maximum amount of equity financing which you are allowed to not go over. For therapeutics companies, those are companies who are intending to develop a new drug or medicine, they must have raised less than $15 million in equity financing. And for other companies, we call you non-therapeutics companies, you must have raised less than $7.5 million in equity financing. There is a minimum threshold of at-risk capital that all applicants must have raised prior to the date of application, which is February the 5th, 2016. And that threshold at-risk amount is $500,000. Qualifying sources of capital include mandatory at-risk capital, which is matched at 100%, and we do allow you to supplement that amount by grants. So if you've raised $1 million, for example, in at-risk capital, then you are eligible for the full $750,000 amount. Any amount from $500,000 to $750,000, you may supplement with grants, any grants that you've received. The loan covers companies in life science sectors as defined by the statute, which include medical device companies, diagnostics companies, those in biotech and pharmaceuticals, and bioinformatics. And for the full list of life sciences sectors, you can refer to our solicitation, which has a full listing. One set of obligations you would have as an awardee would be to adhere to our MLSC reporting requirements, which include monthly financials and an annual report on headcount. And you must agree to allow us to take a seat as a board observer. To explain a little bit more about subordination, the Mass Life Sciences loan does specify that certain types of debt must be subordinated. Existing debt has a set of requirements which include that you must subordinate from existing debt, which is from founders, from current management, and from your investors. However, our loan agreement does not require you to subordinate any of your existing debt that comes from larger investors, such as banks, commercial lending institutions, and venture debt lenders. We also require subordination, however, from future debt, and you will have to notify us about all future debt. In the case of senior lenders, we will not require you to subordinate that to our loan, and senior lenders are defined as bank or commercial lending institutions with assets of at least $500 million, venture debt lenders with capital commitment in active funds greater than $50 million, and equipment lenders so long as the secured debt is limited to the purchase price of the equipment. Let me give you a little more detail about the eligibility criteria for the Accelerator loan. No matter what therapeutic area or business sector you're in, the following are requirements, and in fact, if you have any of these, you are not eligible. So if you have received a prior award under the Accelerator Loan Program or under the Small Business Matching Grant Program from the MLSC, you are not eligible to apply. If you've raised less than $500,000 in at-risk capital, you are not eligible. If you do not have at least one full-time W-2 employee that submits payroll tax to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are not eligible. And if any of your applicant's management team are employed by a parent company, then again, that would disqualify you. And likewise, if you have any other relationships with the Mass Life Sciences and you are not in compliance, we consider you not to be eligible for the program. There are some specifics based on your sector as well, so therapeutics companies are not eligible to apply if they've raised more than $15 million in total equity financing. Likewise, if you do reach the $15 million during the process of receiving the loan, you would then be disqualified. If you are majority owned by a parent company, which means 50% or more, that is an operating or holding company, and you've raised more than $15 million, you would not be eligible, and in any form of that $15 million. Another critical requirement is that you are able to issue your own equity, stock, or units of ownership, and if you cannot, then you would not be eligible. And a final requirement is that a majority of your board members, if they are also serving on your parent company, then that would also disqualify you. In a similar way, non-therapeutics companies have the same type of requirements around parent company ownership and restrictions. So you can review that in the slides online. But that the maximum at-risk total equity financing is maintained at $7.5 million. Many companies ask us for our definition of at-risk capital, and it's fairly straightforward. It's defined as invested equity, which is cash in exchange for equity or ownership. It's debt. It includes convertible debt into equity, and it also includes founder's equity, but please be able to provide documentation for all of the equity that you would like to attribute to founder's equity. And what is not considered as at-risk capital includes things like like-kind exchanges, grants, advanced licensing and royalty payments, any revenues that you've collected, any vendor lines of credit or vendor payables incurred in the normal course of business, and probably the most important item, which is not considered at risk, is deferred compensation. Your eligible loan amount is determined as a mathematical calculation. It includes the $500,000 or more that you have in at-risk financing, and then whatever grants you have can be added to that to determine your total eligible amount. As a few examples, if you've raised $750,000 in at-risk financing or more, then you are eligible for the full $750,000 loan amount. You don't have to ask for the full $750,000, but you would be eligible. If you have raised no at-risk funding and awarded $1 million in grants, unfortunately you are not eligible for any loan, since the $500,000 at-risk financing is a mandatory requirement. If you've raised $500,000 in at-risk and you've been awarded $100,000 in grants, then you would be eligible for up to $600,000 in the Accelerator Loan Program. So hopefully that gives you a good idea. If you have any questions, you can certainly send us a question on your amount to accelerator@masslifesciences.com, or you can read the slides or the FAQ where it explains this topic in a little more detail. So the threshold criteria to be met by every applicant are summarized here, and I'll walk you through them one more time. So first of all, you must be a life sciences company registered to do business in Massachusetts and with operations in Massachusetts, and will use funds to establish and grow your operations here. You must have raised at least $500,000 in at-risk capital, and you must not exceed any of the required financial levels which we just walked through. You must be in good standing with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which includes the Secretary of State's office and the Department of Revenue. You must have developed credible employment, salary, revenue, and taxable income targets for the next 5 years, and a reasonable plan for achieving such targets. You must have at least one full-time W-2 employee that submits payroll taxes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You must provide data that's required in the application, and that data includes preclinical data, clinical data, or proof of concept data, depending on your stage of development. Finally, two very important criteria. You must be in compliance with all MLSC agreements, so if you have had any other interactions with the center, we expect you to be in full compliance. And finally, and the most important, is that you must complete and submit the application before the deadline of February the 5th, 2016 at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. As far as the application process is concerned, online submissions only are allowed. Paper submissions are not accepted. You will have to provide certification type information which is required, including things like your name and address, some statutory required information such as the projected revenue in Massachusetts over the next 5 years, your plan to achieve revenue goals, your estimated number of full-time Massachusetts employees over the next 5 years with projected average salaries, your taxable income generated by these employees, which will be calculated by the application itself, a method to achieve a diverse workforce, agreements with banks if you have any relationships with the Capital Access Program or the Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, you will have to provide documentation, and that you must be a good corporate actor as defined by the ability to provide certificates of good standing from the Secretary of State and the Department of Revenue. One comment, you should understand that the statutory information such as the estimated number of employees and taxable income and such for these employees over the next 5 years. We understand that these are estimates, so just do the best job you can at making those estimates. The core of the application for the Accelerator Loan Program is the business plan. This is a document which you will upload as a PDF and that you must create in narrative format. PowerPoint documents are not allowed. There is a maximum of 15 pages in total and the font size of 11-point font. Please do not try to use smaller font because the reviewers cannot read the document if you do that. The outline for the business plan includes an executive summary, a short section on science, technology, product or service, essentially what is your business, a short section describing the market opportunity associated with the business, what you expect to be the market you're going to compete in, a little information about the market that you're going to compete in, which we describe as market analysis, a very important short section about your competition, and very importantly, how you are differentiated from that competition, short explanation of your desired clinical and regulatory pathway, a few critical pages on your development plan, what benchmarks or milestones you expect to achieve over the next few years, a short description not to exceed 1 page on your team and team members, and feel free to include board or advisors on that in that 1 page, anything that gives your management team strength, a description of your financials, a very important work plan for the use of MLSC funds, which should not go more than 3 pages. And then in addition to the 15 pages, we do ask you to submit the CVs for the top 2 executives on your team. Again, that isn't part of the 15-page count. It has a separate place on the application, but it gives you the chance to give more detailed CVs on 2 critical members of your team. For those of you who have applied before, there is a very important additional PDF which you're allowed to include, which is called a company update. And for those of you who have applied before, it allows you to give a summary of progress since the last application. Again, we expect this to be submitted as a PDF in narrative format, not PowerPoint. It will include a maximum of 2 pages and no smaller than 11-point font. And we guide you by providing some ideas of things to include in that company update, such as product development or science progress, any news about staffing and management changes, any updates you might want to reflect on that relate to the market or your competitive differentiation, and finally, any financial update. And the more you can include in this 2 pages, the better, that give reviewers a sense for what you've accomplished in the time since your last application. As far as basic online application tips are concerned, the first and foremost one is, if at all possible, submit early to avoid any last-minute technology issues. We like to emphasize this particularly in the winter program, as the possibility of a snowstorm on the deadline day is pretty significant, and we will not be changing the deadline, so please do consider submitting as early as possible. Begin your process by using the sample application template from our website. That's the best way to plan your submission. You might even create a Word document with all of your answers on it. That way, if there's any glitch, you've got all your work saved. When you do move into the online application, please save your work often, and to the extent possible, store your question responses in a Word document or in another backup location. You will have to save the unique link that's provided to you outside of your cache, somewhere else on your computer, so that you can return to your application if you plan to work on it over time. You should also know, it is mentioned in the application, but to reiterate, you need to download and print a copy of your application before you submit. After you submit, you will not be able to print the application. So if you want to have a copy as a record, make sure you download and print the application before clicking submit. It would be also useful during the process of working on the application for you to check that your responses are visible by downloading the application during the process of application development. That way you can be sure that whatever computer you're using is typing in clearly into the application. And one other tip, for each of the PDFs that you need to upload for each field, you will only be allowed to upload only one document. So in cases where you need to combine documents, you will need to do your own scanning and PDFing, so that in each field where there is a PDF, you only need to upload one document. So just keep that in mind. A lot of companies want to understand our evaluation criteria, and at a high level, the considerations that the reviewers will take into account are the management team risk. So does your team have the adequate skills and experience to execute the plan that you've attached? Technology and product development risk. They will assess and discuss the viability, the likely feasibility of the technology and product development that you've outlined. They'll also check the capitalization and adequate funds risk and discuss what funds would be required for you to accomplish the goals you've set out, and is it likely that you would be able to raise those funds and to accomplish that objective. One very important point, they do look closely at the competitive risk and what your product or technology or service will be up against. So the extent to which you do a good job differentiating yourself against the competition, that will make your application more compelling. There are business model risks, which to the extent that you can discuss the kind of pricing or margins involved in your product, what it will take for you to acquire customers, where you're located in the state of Massachusetts, and your ability to scale. All of these are considerations that the reviewers will take into account, that they consider to be related to the business model. Manufacturing risk and manufacturing potential are another very key consideration for the reviewers. All applicants who have the potential to manufacture should definitely highlight that, and particularly if your expectation is that you might be able to do the manufacturing here in Massachusetts, it would be a strongly compelling attribute for your business plan. Timeline and schedule risk is another consideration, and again, it relates to how reviewers assess the feasibility of the timeline that you have planned in order to achieve your objectives. Try not to be too either optimistic or pessimistic. Try to choose a very realistic timeline, and that way the reviewers will know you have the experience to make good judgment about planning your product development and your commercialization pathway. And finally, there's marketing risk, which at this point, for most of your development, being early stage companies, it's probably pretty hard for you to assess, but to the best of your ability, explain how you might tackle the market that you're thinking about entering, or how other alternatives to tackling that market might come about. So this gives you a broad, high-level view of the considerations that reviewers will take into account. The process for the plan for the Accelerator Loan Program implementation began on December 21st, 2015 with our launch. As you know, the applications are due on February 5th, 2016, at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, and that's extremely important. We are not able to accept applications after 12 noon, February 5th, 2016. After the applications are reviewed, we conduct an administrative review, and then we go to our peer reviewers who score the applications and make recommendations to our Scientific Advisory Board. At that point, the Scientific Advisory Board begins their review and discussion and selects those companies that they recommend for due diligence. At that time, companies are informed if they have been invited to due diligence. Those companies must provide an extensive amount of documentation. They'll be given a big long list of questions that they must answer, and they'll also be participating in an on-site due diligence meeting, typically conducted by the MLSC at your location. The companies that succeed during the due diligence process will also be invited to come to the MLSC as finalists for an in-person Q&A session with our board's investment committee and scientific advisory board members, who will hear the finalist presentations and make recommendations. The SAB and investment committee chairs will review the final recommendations and prepare a recommendation which will go to the board. Our expectation is that this will happen during the May 2016 board meeting, and that thereafter all companies and all applicants will be notified, and the MLSC will make public announcements of those companies selected to receive an award. For other information on the Accelerator Loan Program, we will be holding 2 live information sessions. One will be held on January 7th at the Mass Bio offices. It will begin at 9 a.m. in the morning and end at 10:30. On January 12th, we'll be having a second live information session here at the MLSC complex at 1000 Winter Street. For those of you who haven't been to a session before, it's held in the north entrance of the building on the lower level in the conference center, and it will be held at 9:30 a.m. in the morning and conclude at 11 a.m. Finally, we'll be holding a webinar on January 20th, 2016 at 1 p.m. And this recorded session, of course, is available on our website to listen to again. Other materials of critical value to you will be the solicitation, which is on the website, our frequently asked questions, and the slides we've just gone through, which are also available on the Accelerator Loan Program page on the Mass Life Sciences website. Please email us with any questions you might have, and you will be asked to RSVP as well to our email address, which is accelerator@masslifesciences.com. Final note, there are other programs that you might want to check into that are available to early stage companies. The most important program is the Internship Challenge program, and this is a program which allows you to engage student interns, and the state will subsidize and reimburse you for those interns, and it's available on our website. So go to the masslifesciences.com website and you can learn more about the program and see if you're able to engage some interns right away. We also have 2 tools that you can utilize. One is the International Partnership Assistance Portal, or we call it IPAP. This is a portal that you can enter a profile in order to seek partners, and likewise international companies can find you if they are seeking partners with capabilities that you might be able to provide. It's a free portal, it's cloud-based, it's open to all Massachusetts-based life sciences companies, and it's also available to international life sciences companies. It enables you to seek out a number of different resources, whether it's partnerships in R&D or manufacturing or distribution. It's a great asset, you should check it out. And a final free tool we have is called the Massachusetts Clinical Innovation Gateway. And this is another portal to help you find partnerships with the academic medical centers here in Massachusetts. The participating academic medical centers are all across the state, and some wonderful clinical research opportunities. The profile is quick and easy, and you can find out within a month if you've been connected to a resource, so it's definitely worth your while if you need this type of connection. So for any other needs, come to the masslifesciences.com website. Please also sign up for our e-blast. It's a great resource for you for events and for program information and program launches. All of our portals, such as IPAP and the Clinical Innovation Gateway portals, are available there. You can apply to the Accelerator Loan Program from our website. So it's all the great resources available there. And we hope to see you. We hope to see your application. And if you have any more questions, of course, send an email to accelerator@masslifesciences.com. Thank you so much.